Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari. Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana. Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana. Jaya Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा श्रील प्रभुपादा जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तरशत श्री श्रीमद श्री श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तरशत श्री श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत श्री ठाकुर महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। आनंद कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोविंदास श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories Shri Guru Gauranga, all glories Shri Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 15, entitled Instructions for Civilized Human Beings, verse 53. Indriyani manasyurmo vachi karikam manaha Vacham varna samamnaye tamomkare sware nyaset omkaram bindau nadetam tam tu prane mahatyamum indriyani manasyurmau Vachi vaikarikam manah Vacham varna samamnaye Tamomkare sware nyaset Omkaram bindau nadetam Tam tu prane mahatyamum Indriyani manasyurmau Vachi vaikarikam manah Vacham varna samanyvaye Tam omkare sware nyaset Omkaram bindau nadetam Tam tu prane mahatyamum Chamvarna samanyvaye Tamomkare sware nyaset Omkaram bindau nadetam Tam tu prane mahatyamum Indriyani manasyurmau Vachi vaikarikam manah Vajam varna samamnaye Tamomkare sware nyaset Bindonadetam Tam tu prane mahatyamum Indriyani manasyurmau Vachi vaikarikam manaha Vajam varna samanyvaye Tamomkare sware nyaset Omkaram bindo nadetam Tam tu prane mahatyamum. Mataji. Indriyani manasyurmau Vachi vaikarikam manaha Indriyani manasyurmau Vachi vaikarikam manaha Vajam varna samamnaye Tamomkare sware nesed Omkaram bindo nadetam Tam tu prane mahatyamum. What? Indriyani manasyurmo Vachi vaikarikam manaha Vajam varna samamnaye Tamomkare sware neset Omkaram bindo nadetam Tam tu prane mahatyamum. Word to word translation responsively, please. Indriyani, the senses, acting and knowledge gathering. Manasi, in the mind. Urmau, in the waves of acceptance and rejection. Vachi, in the words. Vaikarikam, infected by changes. Manaha, the mind. Vacham, the words. Varna samamnaye, in the aggregate of all alphabets. Tam, that aggregate of all alphabets. Omkare, in the concise form of Omkara. Sware, in the vibration. Nyaset, one should give up. Omkaram, the concise sound vibration. Bindau, in the point of Omkara. Nade, in the sound vibration. Tam, that. Tam, that sound vibration. Tu, indeed. Prane, in the life air. Mahati, unto the Supreme. Amum, the living entity. The mind is always agitated by waves of acceptance and rejection. Therefore, all the activities of the senses should be offered into the mind, which should be offered into one's words. Then one's words should be offered into the aggregate of all alphabets, which should be offered into the concise form Omkara. Omkara should be offered into the point Bindu, Bindu into the vibration of sound, and the vibration into the life air. Then the living entity, who is all that remains, should be placed in Brahman, the Supreme. This is the process of sacrifice. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The mind is always agitated by acceptance and rejection, which are compared to mental waves that are constantly tossing. The living entity is floating in the waves of material existence because of his forgetfulness. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur has therefore sung in his Gitavali, Miche Maya Vashe Yacho Beshe Kacha Habu Dubu Bhai. My dear mind, under the influence of Maya, you are being carried away by the waves of rejection and acceptance. Simply take shelter of Krishna. Jiva Krishna Das, E Bishwas, Korle Tawar Dukhanai. If we simply regard the lotus feet of Krishna as our ultimate shelter, we shall be saved from all the waves of Maya, which are variously exhibited as mental and sensual activities and the agitation of rejection and acceptance. Krishna instructs in Bhagavad Gita 18:66, Sarva dharman paritejya mamekam sharanam raja aham tvam sarva pabebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Therefore, if we simply place ourselves at the lotus feet of Krishna by taking to Krishna consciousness and keeping always in touch with him by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we need not take much trouble in arranging to return to the spiritual world. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is very easy. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Iva Kevalam Kalau Nasteva 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 Gadiranyatha. Om Jnanatimiranthaśya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Sapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanyutam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bhutair Mahathir Yaiva Puro Vibhu Nirmaya Shete Yadamusha Purusha Bhunkte Gunan Shodasha Shodashatmaka Solangrishishta Bhagavan Vachamsi Me. Hare Krishna. Here we are in this chapter, instructions for civilized human beings, and in this particular verse it is mentioned how to purify ourselves and how to go back home, back to Godhead. This is one of the essential points that's been discussed in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and Bhagavad Gita and all other literature. Here specifically speaking about the mind. And the word used is Manasi Urmau. Urmi means waves. Urmi means waves. So this mind is compared to the waves, or in other words, the activities of the mind. The functions of the mind are compared to waves. So waves can go up and down. And we know huge waves can create havoc. Similarly, mind can create a lot of problems, especially when it is turbulent, when it is uncontrolled. And that is the specific scenario that is mentioned here. Manasi Urmau. And here, Srila Prabhupada comes to the point of what is this waves and what is this waves representing, and the top and bottom of this wave of the mind, what is there? One is about what? What are these two aspects of the mind? Sankalpa and Vikalpa. Acceptance and rejection. So to reject and to accept. That is the nature of the mind. So all that we do with our mind is either accept or reject. Of course, invariably we have thought process. But in conclusion, the mind is accepting or rejecting. Have you noticed that? You can think the activities of mind as series of acceptance and rejections. This is about the mind. We do that. Oh, that is good for me. And based on what do we accept and reject? Based on the conception of happiness or the conception of what is good for me or bad for me that we have cultivated. The conception that we have cultivated, based on that, we accept and reject. And that happens automatically. We don't need to do anything about it. That is the nature of the mind. It is a vritti, it is a real function of the mind. Assume, if we have some prasadam in front of us, do we accept and reject? Yes. We think, what is tasty, isn't it? Oh, this is very bland. I need some spices. I don't want this, isn't it? Accept or reject. That particular kind of food, I really like it. I need more and more and more. So that is acceptance. So we cannot say no, this is accepting and rejecting. So this is, in this way, we want to accept happiness and reject distress. This is the very nature of the mind, and that's how we continue our life. And in Krishna consciousness, of course, there is a huge difference. We come to the platform of not accepting and rejecting based on what we like or what we don't like. We add whom to the equation? Krishna. So simple. So what is liking for Krishna? What is the liking for the spiritual master? And then the mind is functioning on the platform of acceptance and rejection. However, the center has changed. Isn't it? If you see Bhagavatam or if you see Bhagavad Gita, there are so many instructions about the mind. Because the real problem lies in the mind. Am I right? The software is buggy. The software is buggy. We have a buggy software which creates a lot of problems. Externally we can be very good. The senses can be, to some degree, everything is well maintained. And to some degree we can have the control senses. But immediately the mind is going to disturb us. And the senses are also disturbed. So this is where the mind, it is just like the software. Even if we try to fix the hardware problems, still the software will not get fixed. This is our problem, the software of our own mind. And it has many, many problems. Not just one problem, there are many different problems. So here we are talking about acceptance and rejection, which is part of thinking, feeling and willing. Am I right? Thinking. One of the functions of the mind is to think. Naturally, we think about so many different things. Yesterday in Prabhu's class, Sri Krishna Prabhu was mentioning about the number of thoughts. General average, they say about 50,000-60,000 thoughts in one day for a normal human being. And Prabhu was equating that to Rajogun. And he was telling, if one is in Sattvagun, it reduces to maybe 5 or 10,000. But still, we are dealing with so many thoughts. whatever it is, whichever guna we are in, still we are dealing with so many thoughts. So thinking. And then we feel for it. So there are so many thoughts which are going on, but we start feeling something which we are getting attached to, depending on our false identification, depending on our false ego. In that thinking process, we can, in all our the thoughts, suddenly we can get attached to one thought. And then we can dwell into that particular thought to the degree that we feel for it. If you think about your favorite prasadam, suddenly you feel for it. There are so many things coming in the mind, and suddenly, if you like gulab jamun, you like pizza, when you suddenly think about it, you feel for it. Means you start to experience the taste through the subtle senses in the mind. And then is willing, accepting, I need it. So there is acceptance there. And if you don't like, the thoughts are not tasteful, then we do reject. So this is the nature of the mind, thinking, feeling, willing. So the mind is going through all these processes. And not only that, the mind is carrying so many vasanas, so many samskaras, so many impressions. They are very, very strong. And they can be very much of an impediment to our bhakti. This is where we have to be very careful, because we are somehow or other trying to practice bhakti, and we already have some wealth in bhakti. We already have some treasures in bhakti. Whatever little taste we have in association with the devotees, in kirtan, in chanting, in prasadam, in seeing the beautiful form of the Lord, this is our real wealth. So we need to identify, this is our real wealth. So, when the mind can tell this and that, we need to preach to ourselves, we need to understand what do we have, what is our real wealth. This is our real wealth. So, we may have only small quantity, but we need to identify that this is my real wealth. Then what happens? So, we are carrying some wealth. So Raghunath Goswami explains in Manashiksha, very important instruction. He says, when we are carrying some wealth, then there are thieves, robbers who are trying to steal what we have. So he compares enemies of the mind to highway robbers. Probably it's not a major problem in Australia. We don't see so many thievery happening when we are driving in highway. But there are countries where there are problems. There are so many thieves. I was speaking to some devotees in South Africa. Telling, some places, if there is a traffic signal, if there is red light, you are not supposed to stop. If there are no cars, just drive through. No speeding fine or no red light fine. Here we will get a fine for sure. There the aim is protection, because gangsters can come, show you the gun, off the car, and they take the car and go. It's a reality. In many places it's a reality. Highway robbers are a reality. And so, we may think here we are very safe, no robbers. But there are robbers who are waiting to steal what we have. What we have obtained with lot of work. Isn't it true? We have put a lot of effort, because we have given up whatever a previous life, we can say. We have given up what we had before. Our sinful habits we have given up. We have put some efforts. And we have come to a point, chanting, associating with the devotees, even getting initiated. We have spent a lot of time in Krishna consciousness. So certainly we have wealth. We may not recognize a lot, but still they are there. Then what happens? Then the enemies of the mind, the highway robbers, they come and they start stealing away. Who are they? Starting with, what is the first one? Family. Okay, we are going deep. Can be. Actually, family is used. But who is the first highway robber? You must know. Last, that's right. So, Raghunath Das Goswami says Kamadi, starting from Kama. All the acharyas mention this point. Bhaktivinoda Thakur elaborates on this point. Here in this purport, we can see the writing of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So it is starting from kama, lust. Meaning, we have so many desires. So in that there can be family too. So many desires. And when they come strong in our mind, then our interest in bhakti will go down. And here in explanation, all the acharyas quotes the verses from the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu upajayate. Then sangat sanjayate kamam kamat lobho bhajayate. Lobhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhrama. Smriti vibhramat buddhinashat vinashyati. Finished. Everything is over. Starting from dhyayato, meditating on objects of the senses. So here, Baladev Vidyabhushan explained further that for a yogi, we are yogis by the way. If you haven't recognized, we are yogis, we are bhakti yogis. So it's applicable to us. So specifically, Baladev Vidyabhushan says, yeah, for yogis this is a great problem that a yogi somehow or other continues to meditate on or just experience all different kinds of temptations. And just they are sitting in the mind. And then what happens? Then we develop a strong attachment. And when there is strong attachment, we want it. We want to fulfill it. And if we cannot fulfill, what happens? Krodha, right? Krodha. So it is called, Krodha is known as Kamanuja. We have Ramanuja. Who is Ramanuja? It's Lakshman. Similarly, we have Kamanuja. Who is Kamanuja? Krodha. When our Kama is not fulfilled. And if it gets fulfilled, then what happens? Exactly, Lobha. If it gets fulfilled, then Lobha. So, Acharya says that Lobha, greed can humiliate us. Greed can humiliate us. Because we forget everything, we run after something material, and everyone thinks, what happened to this devotee? Supposed to be a nice devotee. Now, running after something so material, and everyone can see if you are in the association of the devotees. That is the point of association of the devotees. We will disturb further. And then, if there is kama, krodha, lobha, and it is mentioned, one can have illusion and one can have buddhinasha. One can lose the intelligence. What happens if he loses the intelligence? Then one cannot discriminate. And when one cannot discriminate, and then there is no even interest in understanding Shastra. And then it is said, one goes back to more indulgence in sense gratification. When there is no discrimination, then what is left? Again, back to Sankalpa and Vikalpa. What is good for me materially? So it is mentioned, it is in a very awkward situation we are in. So we have to protect ourselves. We have to protect ourselves. So these are the enemies of the mind. They are residing in the mind and they can come anytime. So it is mentioned anytime. Kamadi is mentioned starting from Kama Rupa. It's further explained Kama Rupa. Usually it's called Kama Rupa, means the form of lust. So it's not in one form. It can come in any form. Like a demon who can change the forms. The Kama can come in any form. This is the point. So we had to be very mindful how these robbers are coming to our mind when they are attacking. And we need to know what to do. That we'll discuss what to do. But we are clear, right? This happens all the time. And then our enthusiasm in bhakti goes down. Has it happened to anyone? Yes, when you are agitated, no interest. And then even the problem is, when we are in actual trouble, the usual mechanism is turned toward Krishna. But when we are down, what do? We want to look for a solace in material energy. Some people who still have material friends, they go back to them. This is the time. Some people, they go back to material indulgences and intoxications. And some people, nothing is there, then we have got the mobile phone. Start scrolling down. Some indulgence, can you see? To distract from disturbances, one just try to distract by going through this video, that video. Then what happens? They are all distracting. They are creating again bad impressions instead of turning toward Krishna. So this is a solution, turning towards Krishna. Then there is a solution. If you take that opportunity to pray to Krishna, then there is definitely an opportunity. So now, Raghunath Goswami, he explains that, see, he actually gets very heavy. I'll just read a part of a verse from Manashiksha. He says, "O ruffian mind." Okay, we all have ruffian mind, right? If it's not fully controlled, then the mind is a ruffian. So he says, "O ruffian mind, why do you burn yourself and me?" See, very interesting statement. Why do you burn yourself? That is mind. Why do you burn yourself and me, the soul, by bathing in the trickling urine of the great donkey of full-blown hypocrisy and duplicity? Can you imagine? Strong. This is very much applicable to practicing devotees because we had to deal with it. What is hypocrisy? Yes, there is a disparity between external and internal. So this we can see. And duplicity, we say one thing and we do something else. And we can also cheat ourselves. We can try to cheat others. We can cheat ourselves. We think we are cheating everyone. We are cheating ourselves actually. So it is compared to what? Bathing in urine. Donkey. He says, this is what you are doing. For a practitioner of bhakti, it is very, very dangerous, isn't it? It's very, very dangerous to cultivate such kind of a thing. And so he gives some, in fact, the acharyas, they give further commentary on this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains further, what are the characteristics? If for us, what comes to our mind when we are duplicitous or hypocritic? What kind of thing come to our mind? So broadly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur classifies devotees into three. We will not get into the details of it. He classifies grihasthas into two categories. One category who follows varnashram strictly. They are devotees, they do varnashram strictly, and at the same time they are engaged in devotion service. And others who are not so serious about varnashram, but they are predominantly just worshipping Krishna. They are worshipping Krishna. Both are serious devotees. One is called Swanishtha and Paranishta. And then the third category, those who are in the renounced order, Nirapeksha. So here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains further what are the impediments that can come to our mind, depending on ashram, depending on our social situation. What are the kind of thoughts that can derail our devotional service? So he says, specifically first starting from Grihastha devotee, he says, indulging in sense gratification on the pretext of satisfying the Supreme God. One is actually satisfying one's own senses, but one thinks that I am actually pleasing Krishna. It's a heavy statement, you think about it. Even our own context, we can think about it, isn't it? Sometimes we say, I have this, I need this possession. Why? Oh, it is for the service of Krishna. But it's not really for the service of Krishna, it is for my own pleasure. This is very serious. But this is the pretext. So we have to be reflective. We have to reflect on our own desires. Why really we want this? We can discuss with seniors. We can discuss with gurus. We can discuss with our mentors, right? So we know what's really going on in our mind. Then another thing he says that serving rich materialistic people instead of serving Nirapeksha devotees of the Lord. Instead of serving sadhus, one is more inclined to serving materialistic people. To give an example, sometimes in social connections and to gain material favors, we want to have very nice dealings, not just dealings, we want to serve and we want to have a closer relationship with materialistic people. Especially this can happen in Grihastha life. It can be, part of one may feel it's a need. So instead of developing closer relationship with the devotees, with the sadhus, one can tend to serve the materialist and one can actually try to have a closer relationship with materialistic people. And then what happens? One can be influenced by them. Can that happen? Yes, it happens. Or it is for a business deal. It is for a work requirement. But when those connections are going deeper, they are influencing us. It has happened to many devotees actually. They get influenced by material connections because then one spend more time in those connections and they are influencing us in a bad way. And third, it is mentioned, accumulating more wealth than would ever be needed. It can be a problem because then one can be influenced by that. So this is, one has to be careful what is required. Because sometimes we may think it is for the service of the Lord, but when it comes to atyahara and prayasa, when it comes to over endeavor, it is naturally derailing our spiritual life. So Rupa Goswami very concisely present atyahara prayasasya. Atyahara, over endeavor. How do we know over endeavor? There is no quality time for our sadhana, there is no quality time for our seva. Then we know it is definitely over endeavor and we have to be watchful. So when we go in the other path, then we can be very much influenced. Third one is, even Rupa Goswami has mentioned, unnecessary reading. Reading too much. Here it is mentioned instead of cultivating spiritual knowledge, one is teaching twisted logic and self-motivated speculation in the name of giving education. In other words, one is moving away from spending time in Shastra. We have desire to study so many things, isn't it? Sometimes, if we are intellectually oriented, we have desire to read so many things, and one can easily be swayed in that direction. Whereas then there is no taste for Bhagavatam, isn't it? Bhakti is very interesting. Where we put our energy, we get the taste. Say if you start reading, simple example, if you start watching all this Facebook, Insta, whatever small videos, clippets, if you start doing it, you develop taste for that. You feel like, when there is a phone, naturally you feel like, take the phone and watch. Isn't it? There is a pulling. And now, if you start reading newspaper, you develop that mundane taste. Feel like, oh, what happened today? Yes or no? What happened to the election? And what happened to this all intricate details, geopolitics, one gets into everything. And naturally, one tends to read. Now, if you apply the same principle in Bhagavatam, whenever we have time, we thinking about Bhagavatam, we are reading some verses from Bhagavatam, what's happening in Bhagavatam, then naturally the mind goes. So, wherever Dhyayato Vishaya and Pumsa, instead of Vishaya, if you make it Krishna, then naturally we develop attraction for Krishna. It's a matter of where we are putting our energy. So where we are putting our mind. And that's why we need to develop habits and routine in which we have sufficient time to read Bhagavatam, we have sufficient time to hear Bhagavatam, we have sufficient time to chant quality rounds. So where we put our energy, depending on that, we develop taste. So it is up to us. That's where, and finally he says that wearing the dress of materially disinterested renunciate in order to gain material prestige. Externally very renounced, but internally going through sense gratification. So, given the example of, one is fasting day, not even nirjal, very strict, not even drinking a drop of water. And then go to Ganges, take a dip in Ganges, but under the water, when you are inside the water, drink water and come out. So this is considered, externally we show something, and inside, drinking water. So this is a problem. And because of this, it is very difficult to make progress in bhakti. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, one has to be very, very careful about this. And also, he further explains that preferring the association of non-devotees rather than Krishna-conscious devotees. This happens, actually, don't think that this is just a statement. It happens to a devotee's life when one is going very low in one's Krishna consciousness. Feel like non-devotees, they understand us better. Devotees, they are just telling, follow the regularity principles, chant, do this service. They say, whatever I do, they say, you are in Maya. If you do that, that is in Maya. So many things, being very unrealistic. So rather, I should associate with who are realists, who are the non-devotees. They can understand what I am going through. So this is considered. So this happens when we are low in our Krishna consciousness, and so we have to be very careful. And then for renunciants, further explain that this is about the renunciant. Next point, thinking oneself as an advanced Vaishnava, because one is wearing saffron or shaving the head or whatever, one thinks that I am more an advanced Vaishnava. Not necessary, because bhakti is not based on ashram. Then similarly, I am superior to others because of the cloth. Another, collecting more or wealth for food and clothing, not for what is required. One is collecting money more than what is required. And improperly associating with opposite sex in the name of spiritual practices. Very important. If one is a renunciant, one shouldn't associate with the opposite sex for pleasure. Not even words. One shouldn't even joke around. Not appropriate. One has to be very clear what one is doing. So in this way, and also staying with materialistic people with the expectation of receiving wealth rather than visiting Krishna's temple. So we can see so many ways mind can be swayed. Mind can be our enemy. So starting from the enemies of the mind and all kind of duplicitous and hypocritic thoughts that we maintain and how we act in that way. And they are our enemies. So in this regard, for all the 6 enemies of the mind, Acharyas says what to do. They emphasize one very important point. They say that call out for the devotees for help. Call out the devotees for help. They say we have to take shelter of the devotees. If we have all these problems still, if we have the association of the devotees, then devotees can pull us. If we are mostly associating with the devotees, if we go in a wrong path, they can help us. And their good qualities can rub off on us. So in this way, we need the association of the devotees. And Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur explains that one should cry out. If we are actually seeing problems in our heart, first it is important to see problems in our heart, isn't it? Many times we just brush aside. It happens, brush aside. It's there, it's okay. But when we really see, these are my anartha, these are my problems, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur says, call out for help. Internally cry to the Lord. Cry to the devotees internally there. In the association, but cry out internally, please help me, I need help. So if you sincerely call out, then Krishna can help. So give the example of the killer of Baka. So the duplicity, hypocrisy is considered like a Baka. Baka demon. Who is Baka? What demon is he? Crane. Yeah, crane demon, right? So Krishna opened the mouth, he can just pull it. Similarly, the duplicitous, Krishna can just pull it. And he can break it. Similarly, he can kill. So specifically it is mentioned about the one who actually killed the Baka demon. Pray to him. That's what's mentioned. Pray to the devotees. Pray to the Supreme Lord. They can help us. And there is no other way. We cannot deal ourselves. Please understand, when there are these kind of anarthas, we cannot deal ourselves. We can take the corrective measures in terms of avoiding wrong association, doing the right things, but still the desires remain. And then we have to call out for the Lord. And if we sincerely call out for the Lord will help. Because We don't have the strength to remove ourselves. It's not possible. And that's why it is mentioned. So here, from Gitavali, it is mentioned, my dear mind, under the influence of Maya, you are being carried away by the waves of rejection and acceptance. Simply take shelter of Krishna. So Radha Krishna Bol Bol, that's the song here Prabhupada is quoting, right? Radha Krishna Bol Bol. Chant Hare Krishna, and then Krishna will protect. And in this verse, what is the process that is given? There is a sequence is given. May not be directly applicable for us, but we can learn something from here. What is given? First, what to offer to what? What's the verse saying? Huh? No, that's not the beginning. Activities of the senses. The verse is telling activities of the senses should be offered to the mind. And then what is mentioned? Mind offered to words. Words offered to aggregate of alphabets. And aggregate of alphabets offered to Omkara. Omkara to the Bindu, Nada, the sound vibration. And that Nada offered to Prana, life air. Prana offered to the Supreme Lord. So in this way, this is a process mentioned. In other words, of course, we are not exactly following this. But here the principle is, from the grosser level, everything is offered to subtle. Meaning, the activities offered to the mind means control the material activities through the mind. And mind through the words. And ultimately, what word is mentioned? Omkara. Bindu means the vibration of Omkara. So here again the process is through mantra chanting. Chanting of mantra, that is the point mentioned. And through mantra chanting, prana, oneself is offered unto the Supreme Lord. And the same process we do by chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So the same principle. So essentially the principle is the same, that we offer our everything to chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So we had to be prepared in chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. What we had to do when we have to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, there also there is acceptance and rejections while chanting. Yes or no? So first, in chanting, we have to unplug ourselves. What is unplugging ourselves? If you want to have proper chanting, first we have to unplug ourselves. Because we have plugged into so many channels. And in so many channels, so many acceptance and rejections are going on. So we had to take some conscious endeavor in chanting properly. First thing is, keep away your mobile phone. That's the first step in chanting. If a mobile phone is next to you, you will be looking and you in acceptance and rejection. This call shall I take? This message has come. What should I do now? The first distraction is mobile phone. Then be in an environment where people are not chatting. We are here to chant, not to chat. Sometimes it happens, to chant, there's somebody's conversation is going on, come and sit right in the middle. Why? To chant. So this is for chanting or for chatting. So the external environment has to be clear to chant. And there shouldn't be external distractions. Then one can internally unplug. Is it right? Internally unplug means this is the time for chanting and it is not for anything else. And that's why there is chanting time. There is a reason for this. So chanting time, we don't need to think about other things. If thoughts are coming, this is my chanting time and I can deal with this thought later. That's why there is chanting time. And then think that this is the process. That's why the importance of the holy name, glories of the holy names are so important that we can mentally understand. We understand the look. This is the time to chant. So this is the most important activity. What is the first service to our spiritual master? Do you know what is the first service to our spiritual master? If you are initiated, what is the first service? Yeah, chanting proper 16 rounds. That's the first service to the spiritual master. And so, we need to do that properly. So that is the beginning. That's the beginning. And there are always challenges, even in the first thing. And if we want to control our mind, as mentioned here, then we had to focus on our chanting. And if we do that with attention and consciously, then chanting will improve. And if we are doing unconscious chanting, it will not improve. Time will not just improve our chanting. You understand? So even if we have inattentive chanting for a very prolonged time, it will not become automatically attentive. One has to put effort. Have you noticed that? If you put effort, you get the reciprocation. So in bhakti, everything is like that. Ye yathamam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyam. We put our effort, then we get reciprocation. Many faults, if you have the right desire and if you are putting effort, it's not by our effort. We can see the mercy is much more. So one has to be very careful about it. And that's why in this, the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is very easy. He is not telling all this Omkar chanting and offering this to that. We don't even understand fully. So don't worry about it. Apply that in chanting. Because Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva Kevalam Kalo, Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatat Anyatha. There is no other way for us. So in that way, we can apply to this simple process and we don't need to make it too complicated. Apply and then get the results. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice presentation. So there are two types of bhaktis. One is called Vaidhi Bhakti.
Yes.
And another is called Ragunurag Bhakti.
Yeah.
So I was thinking our childhood when we were surrounded by our mother and then our sisters, parents, and there was a very nice environment of bhakti. And we naturally develop this kind of keenness of devotion. And what you are saying, all this thing, looks like more on Vaidhi Bhakti, which comes and goes. It can come and it can go. You have to chant that many rounds, you have to do this, that. So what I am thinking that the elevated position of this bhakti, when we have, then our mind, soul automatically purified. And we don't need to think about all these mundane things. I'm not sure I understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. So the thing is, yes, sadhana bhakti is classified into two. Sadhana, both are sadhana by the way. One is called Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Second one is Raganuga sadhana bhakti. Now, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti is what generally we are practicing. To start with, one has to be in Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. What is Vaidhi sadhana bhakti? Whether you feel like or not, chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Come to the temple. Follow the regulatory principle. It is not a question whether you like, do you feel like? Nobody is going to ask whether you feel like or not. If you ask, if I feel like I chant means we know what kind of chanting is going to happen. So in Vaidhi, one must follow rules and regulations because the rules and regulations are to remind us of Krishna. It's helping us to think of Krishna. The essential rule of Vaidhi Bhakti is thinking of Krishna. Smartavya satatam Vishnur vismartavyo na jaduchit sarva vidhi nishedhyoho etayoreva kinkara. All the rules and regulations are servant of one principle. Always think Krishna and never forget him. But two principles, both are same. So this is the point. And given that, what happens? One start practicing. One even in Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, one should think about Krishna. Then what is Raganuga is very advanced. Raganuga, don't take Raganuga very cheaply. So if one has to come to Raganuga sadhana, the minimum qualification is Nishtha Bhakti. Means all the prominent anarthas are gone from the heart. Now we discussed about different anarthas. All these anarthas must be out of the heart. And then one has some taste in chanting. For example, if one is chanting, beginning to end, one can chant. And one is focused and there is taste for it. One is not distracted. So this is internal nishtha. There is external nishtha and there is internal nishtha. External nishtha is, we can see 10 years, one devotee is doing the same service. 20 years, devotee is doing the same service. This is external nishtha, which is good, but external nishtha doesn't guarantee internal nishtha. Okay, it is some symptom of internal nishtha, but it doesn't guarantee. So the internal nishtha or steadiness is very important, and that's where, for that, anarthas must be gone. Can you see? And only on that platform one can even think about Raganuga sadhana bhakti. So it is very advanced. Yes, it is a solution, but to get to there, one has to deal with the problems that we have discussed. One has to deal with that. For that, one has to cry out for Krishna. So in all bhakti, the principle is always remember Krishna and never forget him. But one, in the Vaidhi, we have the help of rules and regulations. So it is like the training wheel of the bicycle. If you try to fall, then the training wheel will keep you stable. That's the rules. So if you feel like not doing it, rules will tell, okay, you have to chant, then you will chant. But in Raganuga, after you know how to ride the bike, then you just go. You don't need the training wheel. But that is more advanced. So we had to take our steps towards that. But we cannot jump. It will take time. Make sense? Yeah. Any other question? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank
Hare
you for the
Krishna.
nice class.
Thank you.
Prabhu, you mentioned how like the highway robbers in our devotional service progress, the enemies of the mind, lust and anger, they try lust and anger, they try to steal our devotional service, like progress. But we see in Bhagavad Gita 2.40, Lord Krishna says that the spiritual progress is never lost. It is always with us. And we see in the we can see, and that's how we differentiate between the material wealth and the spiritual wealth. The material wealth can be stolen, but the spiritual wealth stays with us. So how can we understand?
Yeah, it's a good question, because Krishna explains that. That's what I'm doing. Krishna explains that neha bhikramanashosi pratyavayo na vidyate. So once we develop bhakti, we will not lose it. But here we can see that the highway robbers are coming and they're taking away. So how can we understand this? So the point is, yes, we may have developed some bhakti, and when the highway robbers come, what happens is they steal away all the enthusiasm. So whatever benefit we get from what we have performed in bhakti, that we will get for sure. No one can take away that. Isn't it? Whatever chanting we have done, whatever service we have done, we get the complete benefit for that. That is always there. You understand? Like Ajamil's chanting. He did so many things, but that one chanting, he got the benefit. Yes, so the benefit of bhakti that we do, that we will not lose. It will be there eternally. Even if, as Prabhupada explains, if we take a hammer and if you a nail, if you just nail it with a hammer, even just one hit in Krishna's service, Krishna eternally remembers that. Can you imagine? Just one nail in service of Krishna. Eternally Krishna remembers that. So this is the mercy of Krishna. But at the same time, if we get into sense gratification, we do some bhakti, and when you get sense gratification, what happens? The desire to perform bhakti we lose. And then we get into sense gratificatory activities. So the point is simple. Where we put our effort, we develop taste there. If you just start reading Prabhupada's books, and no matter what, I will, whatever, half an hour, 15 minutes, 1 hour, you start reading, I will do it. Or whenever I get time, I'll start reading. I have a minimum quota, plus whenever I get time, I will just read Prabhupada's books. If you make that habit, you just wait for a week or two, naturally you feel like doing it. This is a habit energy, and then you will actually develop taste. Similarly, you take the phone and watch whatever video here there, and if you do that for a week, done. we feel like doing the same thing again. So it is where we put our energy. So it is in our choice. We can do it. We can make a difference. So don't think that we cannot make a difference. So it's in our hands. So in other words, the benefit of bhakti, whatever we have performed, we will never lose. But taste of bhakti, we can lose. Why? We are developing other taste. We can only have one taste. Either this or that. Okay? Any other question? Yes, Mataji. Thank you. Can you turn on? Yeah.
Thank you very much. And my question will be about sankalpa and vikalpa. You mentioned it's in material world. We have desires. We like this, we don't like that. But can that sankalpa and vikalpa creep in the devotional service?
Yes.
Like, I like this, I don't like that. I like that place, I don't like that place, which is a holy place. Or I am attached to this temple and I don't want to go to the other temple. Could it be like that? And how to deal with that if it happens?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll explain two aspects of sankalpa, vikalpa in spiritual life. One I already explained. One is, instead of what I like, we do focus on what Guru likes, what Prabhupada likes, what Krishna likes. So that is one way of using sankalpa and vikalpa, because that we do many times actually in devotional life. We do things which is good which is pleasing to the spiritual master. It may not be pleasing for us immediately, for our senses. There can be hard work, but we do it anyway because it is pleasing to the spiritual master. And we avoid certain things. We can be very much tempted to do certain things, but we think about our spiritual master. We think, what will our spiritual master think? One will not do it. Can you see? So this is sankalpa, vikalpa in spiritual life. Then when it comes to, your question is more towards, we may have our preferences. So some devotees want to associate with this temple. Some devotees want to be associated with some other temple in some other part of Australia. They are actually personal choice. That is personal choice. However, we have to make sure that those choices and those desires are not tinted with material desires. It has to be a spiritual desire. One may desire to go to Vrindavan or Mayapur. That is one's personal choice. One may desire to spend more time in Vrindavan. Some devotees, I want to be in Mayapur. That is okay. There is no problem. That is our spiritual choices, no problem. Some people may read more Bhāgavatam. Some people may read more Chaitanya Charitamrita. But one is not accepting and rejecting. You see, if you assume, I want to live in Vrindavan, not in Mayapur. Does that mean that I am rejecting Mayapur? No, it is only a preference of where I want to live. One knows the glories of Mayapur and accepts and glorifies Mayapur and visits Mayapur also. You understand? So it is not exactly rejecting, it is preference. And in that, we may take guidance of the devotee, spiritual master, etc. in our spiritual choices too. Right? Because even the services, it's not that we can do what we want to do. That is another problem. Sometimes we have to do services which we don't want to do because that is a need. Right? That is very important. In spiritual life, it's not that we can do always what we want to do. Something we may want to do, something we may not want to do, but we have to do because that's the need. So we have to see them clearly in different contexts. Make sense? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any other question? Okay. Thank you. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय, समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय।